It all started with 7 words tossed out casually while I was elbow deep in greasy dinner plates. David, let's get a divorce, okay? I stood there in the kitchen, winter wind sneaking in through the cracked window, my hands numb from scrubbing in cold water, when I heard Rebecca say that from the living room like she was ordering takeout. I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped out slowly, watching her lounge on the couch in her pajamas, glued to some cringy reality show like nothing was wrong. What did you say? I asked, keeping my voice level even though I already had a sinking feeling in my chest. She didn't even look up. I said let's get a divorce. I blinked. What for? What did I do this time? Rebecca and I had been married over 20 years. We weren't passionate newlyweds anymore, sure, but we were what people called a regular old married couple. She yelled, I endured, and life moved on. Back when we first got married, she made it crystal clear, she wasn't marrying me to become someone's maid. So I took care of everything: money, housework, parenting. She played queen and I played servant, and every time I got tired or complained, she'd throw my wedding vows back in my face. Didn't you promise to treat me like royalty? Don't tell me you regret it now. Over the years, those words became a weapon. The moment something didn't go her way, she'd start a fight, threaten to leave, storm out, and I'd always smooth things over. But this time felt different. There's no reason, she said, scrolling her phone like I was background noise. I just don't want to be with a loser like you anymore. I'm done. Her tone was so casual it almost sounded rehearsed. You want a divorce? I repeated. Fine. But I want a real reason. Things aren't like they used to be. Divorce isn't a game. Legally, she couldn't just walk away unless I agreed, and I wasn't about to make it easy this time. Her face twisted in annoyance, like I was a speed bump on her path to freedom. Then she stood up and looked me dead in the eyes. You want the truth? Fine. These past 20 years have been the most miserable of my life. Now that Sophie's grown, I'm done wasting my time. I want to live. I want to love. I want something real. I stared at her like she'd slapped me. Love? What the hell are you talking about? She laughed, mocking, cruel. Have you looked in the mirror lately? You've got nothing going for you. No money, no ambition, no spark. You're pathetic. My best friend's husband takes her to Europe twice a year. You flinch at the price of a handbag. Honestly, the only reason I married you was because my parents forced me. I've been faking it for 2 decades. My heart sank, but I still tried to keep calm. That's enough. You've said what you needed to say. But Sophie, how can you talk like that in front of her? Rebecca scoffed and kicked the trash can next to the coffee table, knocking it over. Sophie, she spat. She's just as pathetic as you. Always crying, always whining, dumb as a rock and ugly as sin. Doesn't even look like me. Honestly, every time I see her face, I get nauseous. That was it. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just insulting me now, she was insulting our daughter. Our child. The girl I held as a baby, raised, protected. That's your daughter, I said, jaw clenched. How could you say something like that about your own flesh and blood? You think I wanted her, she snapped. I didn't ask to be a mother. She's yours now. I don't want her. I could barely speak. Sophie, who'd just come home from school, stood frozen in the doorway, hearing everything. Her face was pale, but she ran to me and grabbed my arm. Dad, are you okay? She asked, voice trembling. I nodded slowly, brushing her hair back gently. I'm fine, honey. But I wasn't. Not even close. Sophie looked up at Rebecca, eyes wet. I always knew, she whispered. You never liked me. You never even wanted to call me your daughter. Why, Mom? What did I ever do to you? Rebecca glared. You want to talk back to me now? This is what happens when your father spoils you rotten. You take his side like a traitor. What kind of daughter are you? She raised her hand. She was actually going to hit Sophie. I snapped out of my daze and caught her wrist mid-air. Without hesitation, I shoved her back. Enough, I said sharply. You want to leave? Go ahead. But don't you dare lay a finger on our daughter. Rebecca's eyes flashed. I'll bring him over then. The man I love. Chad. He's younger, stronger, better than you in every way. I barked a laugh. Perfect. I'd love to meet the guy stupid enough to sign up for you. Don't touch him, she warned, grabbing her purse and storming out the door. And just like that, the house fell into silence. Sophie looked at the overturned trash, the broken dishes, then at me. She wiped her tears and tried to smile. It's okay, Dad, she said quietly. You don't have to blame yourself. It's not your fault she's like this. I felt my throat tighten. You're such a good kid, I said, forcing a smile. I'm sorry you have to go through this. She shook her head. I've been thinking, Dad. Isn't it weird? Why is she so desperate to leave now, out of nowhere? She's acting like she's got some big win waiting for her. It doesn't make sense. I nodded slowly. Yeah. It's like she's running toward something. Or running away. Sophie suddenly dug through her backpack and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. Dad, remember how Mom asked me to buy a lottery ticket for her last week? I bought one for her. But I also bought one for myself with your birthday numbers. I stared at her, my mind clicking into place. Wait, did you register your ticket with your mom's phone number? She blinked. Yeah, I used her number for both. Why? I laughed. I actually laughed. Oh my God. That's it. She thinks she won. She must have gotten the text message saying, congratulations. You've won. And assumed it was hers. Sophie's jaw dropped. But it's mine. I bought it. It's our ticket. I grinned. Exactly. And that explains everything. The sudden divorce, the no-strings-attached act, the fake confidence she thinks she's sitting on $50 million. And she's trying to cash out before I find out and split it. I leaned back on the couch, heart pounding, not from fear anymore but from pure, giddy rage. She thought she played us. But Rebecca didn't realize she just handed us the best escape plan imaginable. I looked at Sophie and said, sweetheart, your mother may be blind, but you're our lucky star. The very next morning, Rebecca showed up again, this time with Chad in tow. I gotta admit, I was curious to finally see this so-called Prince Charming, the guy she trashed 20 years of marriage for. But when the door swung open and I got a good look at him, I almost laughed out loud. Chad looked like he came straight out of a late-night energy drink commercial. Slick back hair, designer hoodie 2 sizes too tight, bags under his eyes that screamed, no sleep and too many parties, and the kind of confident smirk only broke guys with delusions of grandeur wear. He sauntered into my living room like he owned the place, tossed his keys on my table, and said, Yo, old man. I'm here to take your spot. I raised an eyebrow. And you are? Name's Chad. Rebecca's man now. Step aside. Sophie was standing behind me, arms crossed, staring at him like he was gum stuck to her shoe. But Chad didn't care. He turned to her and said, Hey, sweetheart. Don't worry. I'll take good care of your mom now. You'll thank me later. That was the last straw. Sophie stepped forward, her voice sharp. You. Take care of anyone? Please. You look like you can't even take care of yourself. Chad's smile twitched. Watch your mouth, little girl. I stepped between them immediately. You raise a hand to my daughter, and I swear you won't leave here on 2 legs. Chad glared at me like he was trying to size me up, but all I saw was a wet noodle pretending to be a tough guy. Before he could say anything else, Rebecca chimed in. Stop being dramatic, David. Just sign the divorce papers and let's be done with this. She pulled the folder from her purse like it was a golden ticket. I stared at it for a moment, then looked at her. So that's it? 20 years, thrown away because you think the grass is greener. It is greener, she snapped. And richer. Unlike you, Chad has dreams. Yeah, Sophie said under her breath. Dreams of living off women. Rebecca's face turned red. She's just like you, she spat. Disrespectful and bitter. No, I said calmly. She's honest. And you can't handle that. I signed the papers right there on the spot, flipping to the last page with zero hesitation. If she thought I was gonna beg or cry, she was in for a rude awakening. When I handed the documents back, I looked her dead in the eyes and said, one condition. You leave with nothing, just like you promised. Her mouth twisted into a sneer. Do you really think I care about your pathetic little savings? Keep your crumbs. I'm about to be rich. Great, I said. Then we're done here. She grabbed Chad's arm like they were walking off into the sunset. Let's go, babe. We've got a new life waiting. As soon as they stepped out, Sophie and I sat down on the couch and just stared at each other in stunned silence. Then we both burst out laughing. She really thinks she won, Sophie said between giggles. She's gonna lose her mind when she finds out. Let her enjoy the fantasy, I replied. We'll drop the truth bombs soon enough. Over the next few days, Rebecca and Chad acted like they'd just won the reality show jackpot. They went on shopping sprees, posted cringy couple photos on social media, and even started dropping hints about moving abroad soon. It was honestly embarrassing to watch, but I kept my cool. I had a plan, and I wasn't about to blow it. Meanwhile, Sophie and I started preparing in secret. We opened a new bank account, bought a burner phone, and researched everything we needed to know about redeeming lottery tickets. I even started mapping out how to quit my soul-sucking job without giving my micromanaging boss any warning. We kept everything low-key because let's be real, once people find out you've got millions, they show up like ants at a picnic. But we were still careful. Sophie had used Rebecca's phone number when she registered the ticket, so technically, the prize notification went to her phone. That meant Rebecca still thought the ticket was hers. She was probably just waiting for the divorce to finalize before cashing it in, thinking she was being slick. But the real ticket? The one with my birthday numbers. Sophie kept it safe in a zipped compartment inside her school backpack, wrapped in a sandwich bag and stashed between textbooks. And every time I saw her check on it, my chest swelled with pride. She wasn't just smart, she was my daughter through and through. Dad, she said one night, after we get the money, can we go to Florida? I've always wanted to see the ocean. I smiled. Anywhere you want, kiddo. We'll eat lobster every night if you want. The plan was simple: wait until the 30-day divorce cool-off period ended, go to the Los Angeles Lottery Center first thing in the morning, and quietly redeem the winnings. No announcements, no drama, no interviews. Just in and out. Meanwhile, Rebecca would walk in later with her fake ticket, expecting a fairy tale ending, only to be handed a reality check. But man, I couldn't wait to see the look on her face. I could already picture it, her standing at the counter, smug as hell, thinking she's about to get $50 million wired into her account only for the clerk to say, "Ma'am, this ticket is worth $500. That alone would be worth more than the jackpot." I wasn't even mad anymore. I felt free. Lighter. Like I'd finally crawled out of a hole I didn't even realize I was in. And it felt damn good. I still went to work during that month, just to keep appearances. My boss, Mr. Carter, was his usual charming self, yelling at everyone, handing out unpaid overtime like candy, flirting with the interns. I stayed quiet, smiled when necessary, and made a mental list of every insult I'd ever swallowed from him. That resignation letter. Oh, it was coming. But I'd wait. Just a little longer. Let him think he's still got power over me. Rebecca didn't contact us once during that time. Not even to check on Sophie. Which, honestly, wasn't surprising. She was probably too busy making travel plans with Chad, dreaming of beach resorts and champagne brunches. Little did she know, she was speeding toward the biggest public humiliation of her life. And I was going to be front row with popcorn. Sophie, meanwhile, was thriving. Without her mom around to criticize her every move, she started to smile more. She picked up her old sketchbook again, started drawing, laughing more. It reminded me of when she was a little kid, before things got complicated. "I'm proud of you," I told her one night while we were sitting on the balcony. She looked at me, surprised. For what? For staying strong. For being braver than most adults I know. For still believing in people after everything. She leaned against my shoulder. "I believe in you, Dad. That's enough." I didn't say anything, just let that moment sink in. Because after everything Rebecca had thrown at us, the insults, the betrayal, the emotional damage, were still here. Stronger. Closer. And about to be very, very rich. The 30-day divorce cooling-off period passed in a blink, and just like that, the final day was here. Sophie and I woke up early, hearts pounding for different reasons, because we were about to cash in a life-changing lottery win without Rebecca having the faintest clue, or, because she'd been dreaming of this day ever since her mom threw away our family like yesterday's leftovers. We got dressed in our pre-planned disguise hoodies, ball caps, masks, and took one last look at ourselves in the mirror before stepping out. I looked like some washed-up high school football coach on his day off, and Sophie looked like an underpaid barista avoiding paparazzi, but that was the point. Low-key. Invisible. It was winter in LA, which helped us blend in even more since everyone looked like they were dressed to rob a bank. We didn't take our car, just in case someone spotted it near the lottery center and got nosy. Instead, we called a cab and gave the address to the strip mall 1 block away, walked the rest of the distance on foot, and slid into the California State Lottery office like two ghosts. The staff at the counter barely glanced up when we handed over the ticket, and for a second, I thought my heart might actually explode. Sophie was clutching her backpack like it held the entire universe, and in a way, it did. The woman behind the desk scanned the barcode, paused, blinked, then smiled faintly. "Congratulations," she said. "This ticket's a verified winner. You've just hit the $50 million jackpot. After tax, your take-home will be about $40 million. Sophie's knees buckled. I put a hand on her shoulder, half to steady her, half to keep myself from collapsing too. The rest of the process went smooth as butter. No red tape, no mistakes. The woman asked if we wanted our names public or if we preferred to stay anonymous. I didn't even hesitate. "Private, please. No press, no announcements." She nodded and handed us some forms to sign. 30 minutes later, we walked out of that office a hell of a lot richer than we'd ever been, still dressed like fugitives, but grinning like maniacs. Sophie had her phone out, already Googling tropical destinations, when I saw them, Rebecca and Chad, pulling up in a rental car like they were about to conquer the world. "Shoo," I whispered, nudging her. "Don't say a word." We ducked into a boba shop across the street, ordered 2 hot milk teas, and sat by the window like we were watching a live episode of some cringy reality show. And boy, the drama did not disappoint. Rebecca waltzed into the building like she owned it, holding the lottery ticket like it was a VIP concert pass. Chad strutted behind her, all cocky swagger and fake designer clothes. From where we sat, we could just barely hear her say, "We're here to redeem a $50 million jackpot. Please don't mess it up." The poor staff member looked confused but took the ticket anyway. Seconds passed. Then a full minute. Then the staff member spoke, and Rebecca's expression cracked like a dropped mirror. "Ma'am," he said, "this ticket did win something but only $500. Chad's mouth dropped open. Rebecca blinked, stunned. "That can't be right," she snapped. "Check again." "I got the message. I saw it with my own eyes." She shoved her phone in his face. The guy stayed calm. "I understand, ma'am, but the ticket you presented does not match the winning numbers. The final digits are different. If you look here," he pointed to the screen. Rebecca stared, then looked back at the ticket, then back at her phone. And that's when it hit her. The winning message was for the ticket Sophie bought. The one she thought was hers. She had divorced me, abandoned our daughter, and staked her future on the wrong piece of paper. Her face turned white as chalk. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Chad, meanwhile, was having none of it. He grabbed her shoulders, shaking her slightly. "You told me we were rich. You said you were gonna buy me a house, a car. What the hell is this?" Rebecca finally croaked, "It's not this isn't I thought," then she went rigid, eyes wide. "It's them," she hissed. "David and Sophie. They tricked us. They must have the real ticket." Chad's face twisted with rage. "Then go get it back. You think I signed up for broke and bitter? You better fix this right now." She looked like she was about to faint. "I can't," she whispered. "We're already divorced. I signed everything away. I left with nothing." Chad stared at her, and something in his expression shifted from anger to cold disgust. "Then you're worthless," he spat. "You tricked me. You're just some dried-up middle-aged hag with no money and no value. Why the hell did I even sleep with you?" And then he snapped. He shoved her, hard, right there in front of the staff. "You owe me," he screamed. "You better get my money, or I swear," the employee hit the panic button. Security rushed in. Rebecca was crying, full-on sobbing now, begging him to stop. "Chad, please, I gave everything up for you. I thought we were in love." "Love?" he laughed cruelly. "I was just biding time until the money came in. Look at you. You really thought I cared?" He backhanded her before the guards tackled him to the floor. Rebecca, shaking and humiliated, was still trying to gather herself when the police arrived. They cuffed Chad and pulled him away. The officer turned to her and asked if she wanted to press charges. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, with a trembling voice full of rage and shame, she said, "Yes. Lock him up. He's not worth a damn." Watching it all unfold from behind the foggy window, Sophie just sipped her milk tea in silence. Then she leaned over and said, "Guess that's what rock bottom looks like." I nodded, not even smiling. She made her choice. And karma cashed in quick. My phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw Rebecca's number flashing on the screen. I hit decline. A few seconds later, a voicemail popped up. I didn't even need to listen. Sophie was already holding up her phone, playing a recording from weeks ago. Rebecca's voice rang out crystal clear, "I'll never regret it. If I do, may I be struck by lightning and die a miserable death." I laughed. Guess the universe is working overtime. Should I send it to her? Sophie asked. Nah, I replied. Let her stew. We stepped out of the shop and headed back to the car, careful not to cross paths with her. Our work here was done. Our ticket was cashed. Our past was buried. And our future? Wide open. We were finally free and about to live the kind of life she could only dream of. After watching Rebecca's delusional empire crash and burn in real time, Sophie and I headed straight to the bank to confirm the deposit. $40 million, clean and real, staring back at us from the screen like a dream we hadn't dared to believe until now. I looked at Sophie, and her eyes were practically sparkling. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until I let out a slow exhale and said, "That's it, kiddo. We're done with survival mode. From now on, we live." And live we did. First thing I did was pull out my phone and open the company group chat, where my boss Mr. Carter was no doubt lurking and waiting for someone to bully. I typed out a resignation letter with zero sugarcoating, effective immediately, "I'm out. And by the way, you're a manipulative scumbag who doesn't deserve a single one of your employees. Sent." Then I went a little further and texted him directly. His response came back in seconds, all fake concern and passive-aggressive HR lingo. "You can't just walk away like this. What about your bonus? Your responsibilities? Who's gonna hire a 40-year-old failure after this? You should be grateful for what you have." Grateful? I laughed so hard I almost dropped my phone. Grateful for what? The years you made me do two people's work for half the pay? The way you always gave promotions to your female favorites while the rest of us broke our backs and stayed invisible? You think I don't know how you run your office like your own personal dating app? I've got screenshots, voice memos, and more than enough to blow up your little kingdom. Then, for good measure, I added, "Your wife's gonna love reading this." And before he could reply, I blocked his number. Sophie clapped like she was watching a live show. 10 out of 10. Would watch that again. After that, I tossed my work badge, my uniform, and every trace of that place into a garbage bag. That chapter of my life was over. I didn't even feel anger anymore, just relief. The kind that seeps into your bones when you realize you're finally free. Rebecca, of course, tried to call again. I ignored it. So she texted. Then emailed. Then left a sobbing voicemail, full of apologies and, "I didn't know what I had," and, "Chad was a mistake." Sophie was curled up on the couch next to me, scrolling through social media when she clicked play on a voice memo. It was Rebecca's own voice, from the day of the divorce, cold and cocky. "I'll never regret it. If I do, may I be struck by lightning and die a miserable death." We sat in silence for a beat. Then Sophie snorted and said, "You think it's too cruel if I send this back to her?" "Tempting," I said, "but nah. Let karma keep the receipts." I changed my phone number the next day. Blocked all emails. Wiped her out of my digital life like she never existed. I didn't want that energy anywhere near my new beginning. And then we booked the trip. First-class flights to Florida Keys. Sophie had always talked about seeing the ocean, but we never had the time or money. Now, we had both. We packed light, no need to bring baggage from our past, and took off like fugitives who had just won the jackpot, which, ironically, was exactly what we were. The first night we checked into the resort, Sophie and I stood barefoot on the sand, the ocean stretching endlessly before us. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think happiness was something only other people got to have." I looked at her, my heart swelling. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I know it just takes the right people and a little luck." We feasted on seafood buffets, tried parasailing, and even took a day cruise. I watched her laugh more in those few days than she had in the last 5 years combined. And every time she smiled, I felt this deep, quiet pride. Not because of the money. But because even after being ignored, insulted, and treated like a burden by her own mother, my daughter still had enough love and light left to shine. That's something no jackpot can buy. Of course, Rebecca wasn't done. Even after being publicly humiliated, she found a way to track down my new number through a mutual friend and called me again. This time, she sounded different, less arrogant, more broken. "David, please. I know I was wrong. I messed up so badly. Chad used me. He never cared. I was stupid, and I see that now. Please give me another chance. Let's fix this. We can be a family again." I almost dropped the phone. "You think after all that, I'd come back? After you trashed me and our daughter like garbage? After you spit on 20 years of marriage because you thought you hit the jackpot?" Her voice cracked. "I'll do anything. I'll be better. I'll take care of Sophie. I just want to come home." "You don't even know what home means," I said coldly. "You had it and threw it away. There's no coming back from that." And then I played her voice memo back to her, "I'll never regret it. If I do," and hung up. Her next message came hours later. She begged. She threatened. She cried. Then she started blaming me again. Said I was unforgiving, that I poisoned Sophie against her. But none of it hit. Because I'd finally reached that magical point in life where I no longer cared what Rebecca thought or wanted. I didn't even feel bitterness anymore. Just pity. All she had to do was love her family. Instead, she gambled it all for an illusion and lost everything. The final nail in the coffin came when Sophie showed me a private message Rebecca had sent her. It was a photo of our living room back home empty. Rebecca said she'd been evicted, couldn't pay rent, had nowhere to go. "You're the reason I'm like this," she wrote. "I gave up everything for you too." Sophie read it, then calmly replied, "You didn't give up anything. You just bet wrong. And you never once loved us enough to stay." That was the last message either of us sent. We spent the next week hopping from beach to beach, trying every dessert Florida had to offer, and even visited an amusement park Sophie had always dreamed of. I never realized how good it could feel to watch your kid reclaim her joy one bite of cotton candy at a time. And for the first time in forever, I started thinking about my own dreams. About living life on my terms. No more surviving. No more crawling. Just freedom. Real, messy, glorious freedom. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have predicted, was that Rebecca's spiral wasn't done yet. And what came next would be darker than either of us ever imagined. Half a year after our escape to Florida, after the beach sunsets and seafood feasts and silence from Rebecca became our new normal, I thought maybe just Maybest moved on. That she'd finally accepted the consequences of her choices and faded into the background of our lives like a bad dream we no longer needed to revisit. But life has a funny way of circling back, especially when karma has unfinished business. It started when an old coworker sent me a gossip-filled text, "Dude, you won't believe what happened to your ex." My stomach tightened. I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but curiosity got the better of me. I called him up. "You remember Chad?" he said, almost whispering through the phone like it was some national secret. Turns out that guy wasn't just broke, he was toxic, literally. Got busted sleeping around with both men and women, and yeah, you guessed it. He had HIV. Rebecca caught it too. My heart stopped. Not because I still had feelings for her, I didn't. But because that could have been me. If she hadn't despised me enough to leave, if she hadn't been arrogant enough to think she could trade up and cash out, I might have been standing right next to her when that truth hit. "You're kidding," I said, stunned. "Swear on everything," he replied. "People say she lost her mind after she found out. Started spiraling hard. And then, well, she snapped. Apparently she stabbed Chad to death. More than 10 times. Dude bled out before anyone could stop it." I sat there, frozen, phone gripped tight in my hand as my mind processed the words. Chad was dead. Rebecca had killed him. And the worst part? She hadn't even gone down for it like some femme fatale in a courtroom drama. Nope. She didn't make it that far. Because right after she did it, she ran out of the house in a panic and got hit by a drunk driver. Died on the spot. No hospital. No chance for final words. Just gone. Just like that. The woman I'd once promised forever to, the one who'd humiliated me, betrayed our daughter, and threw away her whole life for a fantasy, was gone. Sophie was sitting on the hotel balcony when I told her. I didn't sugarcoat it. She deserved the truth. Mom's gone, I said quietly. She killed Chad. And then she was hit by a car. Sophie didn't cry. She just stared out at the ocean, her eyes hollow and unreadable. I knew it would end badly, she said finally. But I didn't think it'd be like that. I walked over and sat next to her. You okay? She nodded slowly. I think so. I mean, she was still my mom. But also she never really wanted to be. Not to me. Maybe this was always how it was gonna end. People like her, they burn out fast. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. We just sat there, the sound of the waves crashing below us, both of us grieving something neither of us really had to begin with. After a while, Sophie said, you know what's messed up? All she had to do was stay. Just love us. Be there. She could have had everything. The money. The family. Peace. And she threw it away because she wanted more. And what did she get? Disease, murder, and death. Greed is a curse, I muttered. And she was cursed before the lottery ticket ever came into play. Do you think I'm like her? She asked suddenly. That hit me hard. I turned to her, eyes wide. What? No. Never. Sophie, you're nothing like her. You're kind. You're grounded. You never once turned your back on the people who love you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. She smiled, just a little. I just don't want to ever lose myself like she did. I don't want money or love or anything else to change who I am. Then don't, I said. We don't have to become like them. We're writing our own story now. And that's exactly what we did. Rebecca's death didn't bring us joy. It didn't bring closure either. It just brought silence. An eerie silence that hung in the air for weeks. There was no funeral to attend, no goodbyes to give. Her remains were cremated and buried by whatever distant relatives were still willing to claim her, and even they didn't shed tears. Just went through the motions, probably out of obligation. Sophie and I didn't attend. We weren't invited anyway. And we didn't need to be. Our closure had already come in the form of freedom, peace, and a fresh start. Still, the news followed us. Social media posts speculated, local tabloids ran headlines like, "Millionaire Mistress Murders Lover, Dies Same Day," and online armchair psychologists dissected every detail of Rebecca's unraveling. But none of it mattered anymore. Not to us. Sophie deleted all her accounts, and I shut off every notification. We didn't need noise. We needed space. We stayed in Florida a while longer, booking a house by the water and building a routine of morning walks, fresh fruit smoothies, and afternoon naps. Sophie started painting again, real stuff, not school assignments. I watched her fill canvas after canvas with swirling oceans, glowing skies, and dreamlike landscapes that looked like places we'd never been but somehow felt like home. I bought a grill and spent entire days cooking for no reason other than it made me happy. And in those quiet moments, I realized something I hadn't in decades. I liked myself again. Not the overworked husband, not the disrespected father, not the guy being yelled at by his boss or ignored by his wife. Just me. David Moore. A guy who made it through hell and came out on the other side holding his daughter's hand and $40 million. Not bad, considering where I started. I even considered dating again. Not seriously, not yet, but the idea no longer made me want to crawl under a rock. Maybe someday I'd meet someone who liked my dad jokes, who didn't roll her eyes every time I spoke, who didn't see love as a transaction. And if not, that was fine too. Because I wasn't looking for someone to complete me. I already had everything I needed. A few months after Rebecca's death, Sophie and I flew back to our old city, not because we missed it, but because we needed to close a few chapters for good. The moment we stepped off the plane, it hit me how different I felt. Same place, but I wasn't the same man. I wasn't walking through terminals with tired eyes and an overworked back, clutching coupons and praying my car hadn't been towed. I was walking with my head up, my daughter beside me, and a new life banked and blooming. We stayed in a downtown apartment, nothing too flashy, but modern, clean, secure. Sophie had picked it out herself, said she liked the skyline view at night. We didn't return to the old neighborhood. The house Rebecca had once called her prison had already been sold, stripped of its old memories and filled with someone else's furniture. I didn't even bother driving past it. That chapter was over. Instead, we focused on the future. Sophie started prepping for college applications, leaning toward art school, but keeping her options open. With the money, she could go anywhere she wanted, but I reminded her that no matter where she went, I'd be cheering her on, it as a dad pressuring her, but as her #1 fan. As for me, I started volunteering at a community kitchen downtown. Not because I needed to, but because I remembered what it felt like to be tired, invisible, underpaid, and taken for granted. The looks on the faces of some of those people, the way they lit up at a hot meal or a kind word, reminded me that having a lot doesn't mean anything if you've got no one to share it with. That's something Rebecca never understood. She thought love was leverage, and money was power. But she never got that love, real love, the kind that survives betrayal and disappointment, the kind that comes back stronger after being tested. That's something you build, not buy. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if she hadn't left. If she hadn't gotten greedy, or bitter, or desperate for someone younger and flashier. But those thoughts never lasted long. Because I knew exactly what would have happened. I would have kept shrinking. Kept sacrificing. Kept pretending everything was fine. And Sophie? She would have grown up thinking her worth was measured by someone else's opinion. I wasn't about to let that happen. One day, Sophie asked me, "Do you ever miss her?" Even a little. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. Not who she became. Maybe I missed the woman I thought she was at the beginning, the girl who smiled when I brought her tea, who said she loved me for being simple and steady. But that woman? She was probably a fantasy too. Sophie nodded. Yeah, I don't think she ever liked who we really were. Only what we gave her. I wrapped an arm around her shoulder. Well, she's gone. And we're still here. That tells you everything. We had a routine now: brunch every Sunday, walks in the park, movie nights where we took turns picking films, though Sophie always picked sad artsy dramas and I always picked cheesy action flicks with explosions every 10 minutes. And life just became peaceful. Like, real peace. The kind that doesn't feel like a break between storms, but like maybe, just maybe, the storms are behind you for good. One night, while we were sitting on the balcony of the apartment drinking hot cocoa, Sophie said, "You know what I want to do with some of the money?" What? I asked. Start a scholarship. For girls who grew up feeling unwanted. Girls like me. My chest tightened. You're not unwanted, kiddo. You never were. She smiled softly. I know that now. But I want other girls to know it too. I want them to have someone who believes in them even when their own family doesn't. I didn't say anything at first because my throat was tight. Then I just nodded. Let's do it. We'll name it after someone strong. Like who? Like you. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just escaped something terrible, I'd raised someone extraordinary. And as I looked out over the city skyline, I knew that no matter what came next, whether it was more money, new relationships, or just quiet days of cooking and reading, I'd already won. Because while Rebecca chased a fantasy and got devoured by it, Sophie and I built something real. Something unshakable. Something no jackpot could ever buy. We made mistakes, sure. We doubted ourselves. We got hurt. But in the end, we came out of the fire holding each other's hands. And that's the kind of wealth that never runs dry. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that sometimes being left behind is the best thing that can happen to you. Sometimes rock bottom is just the floor you need to push off from. And sometimes the ugliest endings give birth to the most beautiful beginnings. I don't tell people we won the lottery anymore. That part doesn't matter. The real prize? It's sitting across the table from me right now, eating pancakes and humming along to some song I can't name. My daughter. My pride. My miracle. Rebecca thought we were worthless. She thought she traded up. But the truth is, we were the winning ticket all along.